Okay, picture this. It's August 1947, a closed room in Delhi. There's a man leaning over a map and he's drawing a line. Just a single pencil stroke. But that one line, it's about to displace 20 million people and lead to the deaths of a million more. Now, you'd think that's the most staggering part of the story, but it's not. The most incredible part is the man who drew it. I mean, think about that for a second. The guy tasked with carving up a subcontinent had never actually been there. He knew next to nothing about its geography, its culture, its people. Seriously, he probably couldn't have pointed to Punjab or Bengal on a map. And this ignorance, well, that was seen as his greatest qualification. Why? Because it meant he was supposed to be completely neutral. So this is the story of that line. A border drawn, for all intents and purposes, completely blind, with an almost unbelievable sense of urgency. It's the first chaotic chapter in the partition of British India. So who was this guy? His name was Sir Cyril Radcliffe. Back in Britain, he was a brilliant lawyer, a top legal mind, and he was chosen precisely because he had zero connection to India. The British government, you see, felt like they were, and I quote, sitting on a ship full of explosives, and they just wanted out. They thought his total lack of bias was the key. The only problem was his lack of bias came from a complete and total lack of knowledge. And just look at this timeline. It's insane. Radcliffe gets to India on July 8th. He's given this monumental, life-altering task, and he has to finish it in just over a month. He never once visited the villages or walked the fields that he was about to slice in half. And then, here's the final truly cruel twist. The boundary line itself was kept a secret until 2 whole days after independence. So you have millions of people celebrating their freedom, having no idea which country they were actually living in. And the division wasn't just about land. Oh no, it was about everything. Every single desk, every library book, every government file. It got so ridiculous, it almost became a farce. Get this, a bill showed up for 60 ducks that the Bengal government had ordered, and officials started arguing over whether the ducks belonged to West Bengal in India or East Bengal in Pakistan. The whole process was so messy, so bloody, that Radcliffe himself was completely tormented by it. He refused to accept his fee of £2,000. He just wanted to wash his hands of the whole thing. But, this bureaucratic absurdity, it had a devastating, very real human cost. And that is the tragedy of partition. 10 million. Just try to wrap your head around that number for a second. That's just in Punjab. 10 million people, Hindus and Sikhs on one side of this new invisible line, Muslims on the other, suddenly forced to abandon the homes their families had lived in for generations. It became the largest and most violent migration in all of human history. We're talking about columns of people walking down roads that stretched for 50 miles. And maybe the most terrifying symbol of this whole nightmare became what were known as the ghost trains. Trains would pull into a station, say in Amritsar or Lahore, but instead of the usual chaos and noise of people getting off, there was just this chilling silence. And when the doors were finally opened, they were found to be packed not with passengers, but with the bodies of slaughtered refugees. This is the message that was scrawled on the side of one of those trains. It just drives home the absolute horror of it all. This wasn't just random violence. It was a targeted, brutal message sent from one side to the other, using human lives as the ink. And it's so important to remember, these ghost trains were traveling in both directions. No one had a monopoly on the brutality. But even in all that darkness, there was this one incredible glimmer of hope. While a 55,000-strong army couldn't stop the slaughter in Punjab, the city of Calcutta was, for the most part, peaceful. Why? Because of one 78-year-old man, Mahatma Gandhi. Lord Mountbatten had called him his one-man boundary force. And when violence finally did break out in Calcutta, Gandhi began a fast unto death. Within 73 hours, the city's most hardened rioters were literally laying their weapons at his feet, begging him to live. It's now known as the Miracle of Calcutta. And at the very same time that Gandhi was performing that miracle, another, much quieter miracle was taking shape all across the subcontinent. This one was the miracle of integration. See, here's something people forget. The British didn't rule all of India directly. They had all these treaties with 565 princely states, each one ruled by its own Maharaja or Nawab. When the British packed up and left, all these rulers were technically free to become their own independent countries. And that was the problem facing the new Indian government. If these states, some of them bigger than entire countries in Europe, had decided to go it alone, India would have been completely fragmented. It would have been a political and geographical nightmare. The map of India would have looked, well, like a slice of Swiss cheese, just full of holes. So the solution was this masterful, incredibly pragmatic deal. The new Indian government, led by the brilliant Sardar Patel and his right-hand man, VP Menon, basically made the princes an offer they couldn't refuse. They said, look, join India, and you can keep your fancy royal titles, you can keep your palaces, and we'll even give you a state-funded salary called a privy purse. As Patel put it to the viceroy, just give us a basket full of apples and we'll be happy. And that's exactly what they got. But don't think for a second these negotiations were easy. They were filled with high drama. You had the young king of Jodhpur who, right after signing the papers, pulled a pistol on Menon in a moment of distress. Then there was the eccentric Nawab of Junagadh, a man famous for owning 2,000 dogs, who decided he wanted to join Pakistan. When the Indian army showed up, he fled to Karachi with his family and, yes, a few of his favorite dogs, leaving pretty much everyone else behind. For a lot of these rulers, signing away their kingdom really did feel like they were attending their own funeral. But of course, a few really important pieces of the puzzle just refused to fit. And this is where the diplomacy ended and the new nation was truly forged in fire. Two states in particular, Junagadh and Kashmir, really highlight how complex this was. They were like perfect mirror images. Junagadh had a Muslim ruler in charge of a mostly Hindu population. Kashmir had a Hindu ruler in charge of a mostly Muslim population. Now, Pakistan's leader, Jinnah, accepted Junagadh's request to join him. His strategy was pretty clear. If a Muslim ruler could take his Hindu population over to Pakistan, it would set a precedent. It would give him the leverage to force Kashmir's Hindu ruler to do the same. But the Maharaja of Kashmir, he didn't want to join either side. He wanted to be independent. So to force his hand, Pakistan sponsored an invasion by Pathan tribesmen. As these invaders got closer and closer to the capital, Srinagar, a terrified Maharaja finally signed the accession to India, basically trading his kingdom for military help. Just hours later, the Indian army landed. The First Indo-Pak War had begun, and it eventually ended with a ceasefire that created the line of control, which, as you know, still divides Kashmir today. So why didn't the invaders get to the Srinagar airport before the Indian army? What stopped them? Well, the answer is, honestly, you're not going to believe it, greed. The tribesmen had been promised loot, and they stopped just 30 miles short of their objective to plunder the town of Baramulla. That delay, a matter of just a few hours, was all the time the Indian army needed to land, secure that airport, and completely change the course of Kashmir's history. And that really brings us back to the heart of this whole story. The year 1947 was really about two completely different stories happening at the exact same time. On one hand, the division of British India was an absolute, undeniable tragedy, one born from pure haste and ignorance. But on the other hand, the unification of those 565 princely states into a single nation, that was nothing short of a political miracle. So in the end, the story of 1947 leaves us with this really profound question. You have Sir Cyril Radcliffe, who drew a line on a map, and it created absolute chaos. And then you have Sardar Patel, who offered a deal, and it created a country. It really forces you to ask, how is a nation actually made? Is it just a shape on a map, defined by some arbitrary border? Or is it something more? Is it an idea, a negotiation, an act of will that somehow brings all these different parts together into a whole?